Chapter 25. Percy. Percy already felt like the lamest demigod in the history of lame. The purse was the final insult. They'd left Raffle in a hurry, so maybe Iris hadn't meant the bag as criticism. She quickly stuffed it with vitamin-rich pastries, dried fruit leather, macrobiotic beef jerky, and a few crystals for good luck. Then she shoved it at Percy. "Here, you'll need this. Oh, that looks good." The masculine accessory bag was rainbow tie-dyed with a peace symbol stitched in the wooden beads, and the slogan, "Hug the whole world." Percy wished it said "Hug the commode." He felt like the bag was a comment on his massive, incredible uselessness. As they sailed north, he put the man satchel as far away from him as he could, but the boat was small. He couldn't believe how he'd broken down when his friends needed him. First, he'd been dumb enough to leave them when he had to run back to the boat, and Hazel got kidnapped. Then he watched that army marching south and had some kind of nervous breakdown. Embarrassing? Yeah. But he couldn't help it. When he'd seen those evil centaurs and cyclops, it seemed so wrong, so backward, that he thought his head would explode. And the giant polyboats? The giant had given him a feeling the opposite of what he felt when he stood in the ocean. Percy's energy had drained out of him, leaving him weak and feverish, like his insides were eroding. Iris's medicinal tea had helped his body feel better, but his mind still hurt. He heard stories about amputees who had phantom pains where their missing limbs had been, and that's how his mind felt, like his missing memories were aching. Worst of all, the farther north that Percy went, the more those memories faded. He had started to feel better at Camp Jupiter, remembering random names and faces, but even now, Annabeth's face was getting dimmer. At Raffle, when he tried to send an Iris message to Annabeth, Felicia just shaking her head sadly. "It's like you're dialing somebody," she said, "but you've forgotten the number. Or someone is jamming the signal. Sorry, dear, I just can't connect you." He was terrified that he'd lose Annabeth's face completely when he got to Alaska. Maybe he'd wake up one day and not remember her name. Still, he had to concentrate on the quest. The sight of the enemy army had shown him what they were up against. It was early in the morning on June 21st now. They had to get to Alaska, find Thanatos, locate the Legion standard, and make it back to Camp Jupiter by the evening of June the 24th. 4 days. Meanwhile, the enemy had only a few hundred miles to march. Percy guided the boat through strong currents off the northern California coast. The wind was cold, but it felt good, clearing some of the confusion from his head. He bent his will to push the boat as hard as he could. The hull rattled as Pax plowed its way north. Meanwhile, Hazel and Frank traded stories about the events at the Rainbow Organic Foods. Frank explained about the blind seer Phineas in Portland, and how Iris had said that he might be able to help him tell where to find Thanatos. Frank wouldn't say how he managed to kill the basilisks, but Percy got the feeling it had something to do with the broken point of his spear. Whatever had happened, Frank sounded more scared of the spear than the basilisks. When he was done, Hazel told Frank about their time with Fleecy. "So the Iris message worked?" Frank asked. Hazel gave Percy a sympathetic look. She didn't mention his failure to contact Annabeth. "I got in touch with Raina," she said. You're supposed to throw a coin into a rainbow and say this incantation, like, 'Oh, Iris, goddess of the rainbow, accept my offering,' except for Fleecy kind of changed it. She gave us her, what did she call it? Her direct number. So I had to say, 'Oh, Fleecy, do me a solid. Show Raina at Camp Jupiter.' I felt kind of stupid, but it worked. Raina's image appeared in the rainbow, like a two-way video call. She was in the baths, scared out of her mind." "I would have paid to see," Frank said. "I mean, her expression, not the baths." "Frank!" Hazel fanned her face like she needed air. It was an old-fashioned gesture, but cute somehow. "Anyway, we told Raina about the army, but like Percy said, she's pretty much already knew. It doesn't change anything. She's doing what she can to shore up the defenses. Unless we unleash death and get back with the Eagle..." "The camp can't stand against the army," Frank finished. "Not without help." After that, they sailed in silence. Percy kept thinking about the Cyclops and Centaurs. He thought about Annabeth, the satyr Grover, and his dream of the giant warship under construction. "You came from somewhere," Raina had said. Percy wished he could remember. He could call for help. Camp Jupiter shouldn't have to fight against those giants. There must be allies out there somewhere.